that oil change could escalate in price just a tad up to the $50,000 range.
or
Have you
more.
have you had any unfortunate experience with this?
Oh, yes, right now.
Pat Brown, if I were to take my car down to Jiffy Lube or Take 5, or if I was to just go crawl under it in the driveway to do an oil change, I'm going to spend somewhere in the $50 to $100 range, and I'm just going to drain the oil pan, pull off the filter, put on a new filter, put the plug back in, refill the oil, and we're good to go.
Yeah.
That's not how we do it in the airplane business. And there's a reason we don't do it in the airplane business, because you could go get an oil change on your airplane. And by the way, as an owner, you can do that yourself.
Yes, sir.
But we don't just throw that filter away. We cut it open and we spread it out and we inspect it. And the reason we do that is because that oil change could escalate in price just a tad up to the $50,000 range.
Or
Have
more.
have you had any unfortunate experience with this?
Oh, yes, right now.
I don't mean to laugh at you. It's happened to me too. And it is a heartbreaking moment when you look at that filter element and you go, oh crap.
Well, yeah, that wasn't the exact word that came out of my mouth, but you're in the general area. I got a call. This is our Comanche that I share with the greatest partner in the world that somebody could ask for an airplane partner. And we had an engine analyzer installed 3 hours prior to an oil change. And so we flew for 3 hours to, check the oil, to check the engine analyzer, make sure all that was good. And then we put it in for the oil change, and the shop called me and said, hey, can you stop by on your way home? That's never good.
No, that's not what you want to hear from your mechanic.
No. So I walked in and he says, come here, let me show you the filter element that he pulled out. It looks like an accordion. I think you're going to put it up here in a second. And that's what we saw. We saw aluminum in every single fold and not just a little bit.
I'm glad you said aluminum, because one of the things people talk about engines making metal, and they forget there's a variety of kinds of metal in an engine.
Yeah.
And when we see metal in the filter element, we kind of want to know what kind it is. Is it a ferrous metal? Is it a non-ferrous metal? Because that tells us, where's this coming from? If you're seeing aluminum, Pat, where's that coming from?
Well, it's probably coming from the case, but whether it's ferrous metal or Ferris Bueller, it makes no difference to me. Metal is bad.
Yeah.
So we also did run a magnet across it, and there was nothing sticking to the magnet, so we knew it was aluminum. And then it's like, well, where could this be coming from? And so we bore scoped the engine, and we had a suspect cylinder wall, even though they're steel. So we pull that cylinder to look at it. Now, I don't pull cylinders lightly, because that can really screw up the tension in the engine and all that kind of stuff. Way beyond my.
It's worth saying you can do it, and a top overhaul is not unheard of, but you've got to be very cautious, because exactly right, it changes how everything's pulled together, and just a change of a couple thousandths of an inch can make all the difference.
Yeah, or a couple of inch-pounds or something on the torque. I mean, any of that can cause that engine to come apart in a catastrophic way. So we don't pull cylinders lightly. Anyway, we pulled that cylinder, and it looked a little suspect, but again, didn't explain where the aluminum was coming from. They took some pictures, sent it to an engine shop, sent it to a cylinder maker. I don't know, one of the cylinder makers that they use. And they said, no, that actually looks okay. So we put the cylinder back on. It didn't make sense to leave it off at that point, and torqued it back down and everything. We hadn't started the engine back up yet. And then they pull the oil sump filter. This is that copper looking thing that I think you'll put that image up too. That copper looking thing in the image that we're seeing.
It's a perforated tube.
Yeah, perforated tube. Thank you. And all the stuff that surrounds that perforated tube was in that perforated tube. And that stuff was metallic, except for a couple of the pieces there. That little round thing that looks like a washer is actually some sort of a little rubber or plastic thing that if you put up in the lights, you can actually see through it. But that we don't know where that came from, and that's metallic
Mhm.
or magnetic.
Mhm.
So, the decision was, okay, well, we can just pull all the cylinders off and look, and maybe it's a piston that's getting ready to come apart, or who knows. But at the end of the day, we've got a contaminated engine because the filter probably didn't catch it all, which
Mhm.
means there's metal in the oil cooler. There's probably metal in the a governor, even though the screen was clean.
Mhm.
There's probably metal in the prop hub if the governor didn't catch it all. But again,
You're
there
talking
were
about the governor for the propeller.
for the constant speed propeller, yeah. So there could be oil in the prop hub, that controls the prop. At the end of the day, we just didn't know, and we were going to have to tear the engine down totally in order to find that out. Well, it was a 1,500-hour engine,
Mhm.
and as we were talking about before, we roll tape. We're going to either pay for it now or we're going to pay for it later. If we decide to sell the airplane sometime in the next 4 or 5 years at the rate that we fly, we would be close to TBO at that point,
Mhm.
which is 2,000 hours. Now, you don't have to major an engine at 2,000 hours.
Right.
If everything is good, you can run. I've got a
If
good
it's
friend.
not using oil, it's not making metal, and has good compression, keep on going. But you have failed in one of those, so
Yeah,
that,
big time.
that's it.
I've got a good friend that has a Comanche, and he got 2,300 hours out of his engine. Another friend of mine's got a Bonanza, got 2,400 hours out of his engine. It can go beyond TBO, but in this case, if we had just torn it down and figured out what the problem was, addressed the problem, put it back together again, and sent it back out, now we even with new parts, at best we have a time continued engine
Mhm.
that's been repaired as necessary, but it's time continued. It doesn't mean that we're going to get 2,000 hours of it or 3,000 hours. We could very easily, but when we go to sell the airplane, we have an airplane that in the books is at TBO, i.e., a run out engine, and so we're going to pay for it there in a sale price, or we're going to pay for it now when we can control the price and we know what it's going to be. And so you talked about $50,000 oil change. When it's all said and done, when all the dust settles, we're probably going to be in it for this is the major. This is the transportation. This is the labor to get the engine off, pack it up, put it back on again. All the whole
Mhm.
shebang. Probably about 60-ish thousand dollars. Now, I don't I don't say that lightly, and I have a lump in my throat when I say that, but we did have an engine reserve, not quite that much, but we had also both understood that at some point we may have something like this happen. So we've put money aside. We have it. It's not going to affect our lifestyle. We're not going to have to mortgage the house or anything like that. But it's not for the faint of heart.
No, but this is a go big or be sorry situation.
Yeah.
And the example is I had a friend who went through a similar thing. Good person, but I'm sorry to say they tried to save a few bucks. So they didn't replace the oil cooler. Well, the oil cooler is full of metal. So they get a whole new engine in there, they put oil in it, they do the whole thing, and the next oil change, there's metal in the element again. Well, that metal has circulated throughout the engine. You've done all kinds of damage. And what happened to me, it was mine was spalling on the camshaft.
Hmm.
The aircraft had sat for a long time. The top of the engine gets dry, didn't get oil circulated through it. And you can turn over the prop by hand. You can even pre-oil an engine so you don't have this problem, but they didn't do that. So you get the cam is rubbing on the lobe dry and it causes an abrasion. Now, every time it goes around, it gets worse. It's not going to cause a massive engine failure right away, but it does mean you're circulating metal. And I have flown an airplane. My first flying job, you might find this interesting. No, my second flying job, Pat.
Yeah.
I was flying an airplane for the company and it just was not making power, in my opinion. And I finally went in and said, I'm not going to fly that airplane anymore. It's taking up too much runway to get off the ground. It's not climbing well. There's something wrong here. And it was made very clear to me by a guy who I'm still friends with 35 years later. If I tear this engine down and there's nothing wrong with it, you're fired. I'm like, that's fair.
Yeah.
And
Well,
the lobes, that was exactly it with that one. The lobes had worn down so much they weren't opening the valves all the way. So even a small thing, and that's why you're looking for ferrous, non-ferrous metal, it'll give us a sense of what's going on. You put a scope in, which is great, little TV camera where you can go in and actually look through the spark plug hole, look at the cylinders, get a good idea. Maybe for a lot of people who this hasn't happened to yet, and hopefully it doesn't, when you do your oil change, whether you do it on your own or do it with the shop, get an oil analysis.
yeah.
You put it into a little sample cup, kind of like when you pee in a cup at the doctor. Put it in a little sample, you send it off. They'll do an analysis on it and tell you what the trace metals are in that oil. You can save yourself a lot of heartache and trouble by seeing what's coming. The other thing I'm going to say, Pat, you're a genius by having an engine reserve. I always did that when I owned airplanes. I pay myself a certain amount per hour because someday something's going wrong. And if you got that 60 some odd $1,000 bill and you had zero in that account, now we are in a world of hurt. Whereas if I've been paying myself $50 an hour for the last 1,000 hours, I'm actually in pretty good shape here.
Yeah. So I've got a friend that has a 182, very similar to mine, and he started throwing alternator belts. And he
Mm.
spent I don't know how many hundreds of dollars, if not thousands, trying to figure out what was happening and why he was throwing alternator belts, and nobody could figure it out. And it got so bad he just find, something, I'm just going to put another engine in it.
Mhm.
And so he went with Western Skyways, and he went with I think it was the 0520 upgrade, the 285 horse engine that requires a 3-blade prop now instead of a 2-blade prop, and
Mhm.
all sorts of STCs and things like that. And when he was all done with it, it was like, I don't know, $120,000 or something like that. It was crazy. Now, contrast that with another friend of mine who has a similar 182 that was throwing alternator belts, took it over to the prop shop, balanced the prop, fixed the problem. Believe it or not,
Amazing.
balancing the prop fixed the problem.
I will tell you, this is off topic, but it is something that an awful lot of owners don't realize. Even a fixed pitch prop has a TBO.
Yeah,
Propellers are not magical devices that last forever. There's enormous forces being put on those whenever you fly
right.
because of the centrifugal force, because every time you turn, the gyroscopic effect.
All of
You
that.
really do have to take that seriously. And you're making a great point. Sometimes not only is that possibly going to cause you to throw
A
what's
belt.
that thing you were talking about?
Yeah, an alternator belt.
Thank you. Thank you. Technical terms bother me.
Yeah.
But that propeller is connected directly to your crankshaft. And if it's torquing around, you're putting all kinds of stress on the main bearings. Everything goes bad. I know it's off topic, but all those things can lead to, oh, I have metal in my oil filter element.
Yes.
That's probably not good. And
That's the
I'm a big fan of yours, as you know. I idolize you. I have a little thing, every night I say my personal affirmation and I bless the Pat Brown statue.
genuflecting.
But
Hominum
in
nominum
all honesty,
nabisco.
you took this seriously. You took the hit. You made the big change because I mean it. This is a go big or be sorry situation. You cannot cheap out on this because if you do, just like your friend who spent an enormous amount of money on the wrong problem, or my friend who spent a little less money and created the whole problem over again,
Yeah.
you got to remember that it's not just the engine. There's the cooler, there's the governor, there's the hub, and all this stuff comes into play. And you got to get all that metal out of there, or you're just going to have this again.
Yeah. My partner and I talked about this ad nauseum. We really did. But at the end of the day, we thought, all right, look, we can tear it down. We can forget about the money issue. We could tear it down. We can repair whatever is necessary, put it back together again. And we are never going to have the confidence in that engine that we had before, ever.
Well, and as you said, you're paying for it one way or another because when you decide to finally sell that airplane, say you win another year or two flying it as it is, you say, okay, it's time to let it go. Putting an ad someplace on this airplane, and it's got a spectacular panel, and it's got beautiful leather upholstery, and we've changed out the carpets, and the paint is pristine. Oh yeah, and the engine's making metal.
Yeah.
Okay, my offer is about to go down a whole lot.
considerably. So anyway, we made the right decision. We actually dropped the engine off at the shop yesterday. We found one in San Antonio that has a really good reputation, and so it was about a 3-hour drive yesterday. We actually had the shop put the engine in the back of a panel van that the shop owned, and gave us the keys, and off we went. And so we had a chance to meet the owner of the shop, get a tour of the facilities, get a good idea of exactly what he does, see an engine that he was in the process of putting back together again. A huge education for me. I thought the main bearing, for example, was like a round roller bearing.
No,
I didn't
no, it's
realize it was
just a
two was
curved
so.
piece of metal.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
So, and I thought I knew reasonably well what the inside of an engine looks like. And yes, but there was a whole bunch of things that he pointed out that, I didn't realize that.
There's a
So
lot of moving parts in there, and from little tiny circlips up to big crankshafts. And it is a fascinating business. Just out of curiosity, what do you think you're going to be down? Maybe a month, 6 weeks?
Well, the quote was 12 to 16 weeks, and the
Oh
reason
wow,
for
that
that
long
is
now.
that the shops, there's only a certain number of shops that do the magnafluxing. Is that
Yep.
the term
Yep.
of the crank and the case? And those people have an 8-week lead time.
Hmm.
So it's going to take him about 3 days to tear our engine down. Everything gets shipped. The things that need to get shipped. In the meantime, he's ordering the cam, and if we need one, and
Hmm.
everything else, so we'll have it in house. Cylinders, we're going with new superior cylinders, steel wall superior cylinders, and he said it takes about 10 days to put it back together again and test run it. So
Okay.
if we don't get any bad news on the crank or the case, it's very likely we'll have it back in about 12 or 13 weeks, so about 3 months. Compare that if we had considered a brand new factory built Lycoming engine, how long do you think it would take to get it?
I don't believe they have a whole lot of those just sitting on the shelf.
How long do you think it would take? What do you think they're quoting?
5 months?
3 years.
Oh, that's up from my estimate.
3 years. I've got a friend that's building an RV right now, and he ordered his IO 390. I think is the engine he's putting in there.
Mhm.
He ordered that IO 390 2.5 years ago, and he's expecting delivery sometime in the next 90 days.
Wow,
That's
that is
factory new.
amazing.
Now, factory reman is a different thing, but these engine shops around here are busy for a reason because you can't get new engines, at least from Lycoming, in a
Oh yeah,
reasonable period of time. So
yeah.
anyway, so we went with and this will be a zero time major overhaul, zero time brand new logbook, all of that, yellow tag parts and all of that business. So we're very comfortable with the decision that we made, albeit an expensive one. We're comfortable with that.
Well, and I hope viewers will hang in with us because somewhere around March, I figure we're going to get a follow-up episode where we can get a picture of you flying the new airplane engine and let us know what you think about the whole thing.
If we're lucky, we'll have it at Sun and Fun. So
Outstanding.
cross
Pat,
that
I
bridge.
really appreciate you talking about this. It is a serious issue. It's a very expensive one. And as you say, there's a little lump forms in the throat when the mechanic says, "Hey, can you stop by?" to see me?" But I'm glad you made the right decision with your partner. I look forward to having a great new engine in reasonable amount of time. And I will talk to you next week.
All right, pal. Adios.